Untitled Podcast is a part of the Kansas Google Education Group Network and also the Mace Kansas Network. You can find more information about episodes and guests at www.untitledpc.net. Welcome to Untitled Podcast. My name is Travis True.
And I'm Carol Nelson.
Welcome, everyone, to this edition of Untitled Podcast. Our guest today is Ariel Jankord. She's a K-5 STEM teacher in Spring Hill. She spent the previous 11 years teaching first, second, and fourth grade. She runs an after-school program for computer science in Makerspace. Ariel is the founder of the Johnson County Ed Camp. She's ISTE certified educator and received the Making It Happen Award in 2019 from ISTE and Mace, Kansas. She's an Apple teacher, Google certified educator, Microsoft innovative educator, Seesaw ambassador, and Flipgrid certified. She also serves as an ISTE PLN leader for STEM. We want to thank Ariel Jankord for joining us.
It is good to have you, Ariel. I know we connected through METC, so didn't even list that in yours.
I know. I was just thinking that. It's good to be here.
Just give us a little bit of an overview of your educational journey and how you ended up where you are now.
Yeah, so about 12 years ago, I started in Gardner, Kansas as a fourth grade teacher. And I would just say from the very beginning, I don't think I enjoyed school very much as a kid. I was really just there for the social aspects of it. And so as a teacher, I was really eager to make things authentic and make things fun and always wanting to try new things. And I always come back to this comment that a friend I had taught with her my first 4 or 5 years of teaching. And she said to me one day, she was like, I thought you would outgrow like all that excitement and all your crazy ideas that you had as a first year teacher. I just thought that was a first year teacher thing. And, you just never have outgrown that. And at the time I was, still a new teacher. And I was like, I don't know if that's a compliment or not. And so I've always had that in the back of my mind. But I think over time, I've come to use that to motivate myself to not lose that excitement. I think it's easy to get bogged down by, district mandates and all the paperwork and all the other things we have to do that aren't as fun. And so I've just really used that as my motivation. I started working on my master's in technology, and that kind of was an eye-opening time as well for me. I started getting exposed to things outside of my district bubble. And I think it motivated me like, wow, there's more out there. And so I did move to a larger school district, and they were starting iPad initiative. That was the new thing. And they were bringing iPads in. And I was super excited because here I'm working on my master's in technology, and here I have it in my hands now. And I just ran with it. I didn't want it to be a babysitting tool. I didn't want it to be just something that kids were, taking in things. But actually using it as a tool to create and share their learning. But I also found that to be very isolating, because a lot of the teachers around me were just like, why are you, just have them get on, I can't even think of websites when we first started, but, just have them listen to a story on there and that's it. Or some teachers were really scared of it. And so they were like, oh, Ariel and her crazy ideas. And so that was really hard for me, because I kind of just wanted to give up. Like, I was just like, I don't want to be the wacky person. I don't want to be the person that has no friends because she's doing, wild and crazy things. But then I got on Twitter because I was encouraged to do that and started connecting. And I wanted to go to these conferences and learn more and be around people that were equally as excited as I was. And so I asked someone in my district, Josh Stock, which I think you guys interviewed him. I asked him, I was like, you always go to these conferences. And I didn't even know Josh at the time. I was like, how are you going to all these conferences? Like, do you pay out of pocket? And he said, I started presenting. And he said, that's a good way to start. And so I was like, I don't have anything to offer. And But I took a risk and I did it and I got accepted. And since then have just loved attending conferences because I get to connect with people and I learn more and I'm challenged. But I've also found that I really enjoy helping other teachers and that I have the patience and the ability to work with them. So it's kind of helped me narrow my focus as much as I love using and exploring technology. I also love taking that here. I'll vet these things for you and kind of help narrow it down for the teachers that are overwhelmed maybe more easily. I can help them. Like, this is kind of the best tool for what you're wanting to accomplish. And that's been really fun over the last few years, is just working with teachers and traveling and connecting with other educators.
You know, you made a good statement in there that I hear quite a bit is from teachers that you talked about going to conferences and how do you get to go, and my suggestion is the same as Josh's, is sign up to present, but the response I always get is what you said is, oh, I don't have anything to offer. But everybody has something that they're doing in their classroom that can benefit somebody else. So like you said, you just got to take that leap and do it. And so that's some of the best advice that I could give people too. And I've had that conversation, especially around STEM, because it is so new in schools that that everybody's trying to find out and figure out what the best way to do that is. And so I really appreciate that comment that, you took that leap, even though you didn't think you had anything to anybody would be interested in listening to. I mean, Carol was the same way. I was the same way, when we started, and then we're where we are now. So, kind of segueing into that, and talking about conferences, you're a co-creator and organizer of Ed Camp, JOCO, Ed Camp Johnson County. How did that event come to be? How did you guys decide that you were gonna do that? And then you made a pretty dramatic shift in April when everything got shut down. So if you want to talk about that 180 shift in what you're doing, I think a lot of people would be interested in that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was going to conferences and convinced my friend April to drive all the way to Minneapolis it was free. And so I was like, hey, if we have to drive and pay for a hotel, whatever, it's free. So I dragged my friend April with me and we drove up to Minneapolis over our summer to go to this Flipgrid conference. And she actually ended up having family there too. So it worked out. We didn't even have to get a hotel. And we loved it. It was so amazing. And it was free. And it was like half Ed Camp style, half like actual conference. They kind of did a day of each. And on the way home, I mean, we just had ideas flying. We were so excited about the people we had met, so many new people. And it's a long drive. So we have plenty of time to talk. And if you ever meet April or I, you will know that we never run out of things to talk about. So we talked all the way home. And I just was sitting there and all of a sudden I was like, you know what? We have to bring this home. Like, this was the best weekend we've had in so long. And I want to bring this home. And I was like, do you think I'm crazy? Do you think we could do this? And she's like, let's do it. Like, April's all in. She's not afraid of anything either. So we knew we needed more than just the two of us. And that's kind of my advice. If you're feeling this, you got to find people. You have to have a team. And so there was kind of a group in Olathe that had been connecting via Twitter, like middle school and high school teachers. And we've never taught with each other. We don't know each other. We're in a pretty big district, so that's easy. And I just sent a message to them and I was like, hey, would you guys want to do like an Ed Camp here? And they were all like, yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen. I was like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing, but we're going to just go with this and try it. And we did, and we pulled it off. And I will tell you, it was definitely a highlight of my career. That very first day of having that Ed Camp, it was what we wanted. It was bringing educators together to connect and learn from each other. And it was just awesome. We learned a lot. There's little nuances that you learn in creating an event with that many people. But we immediately afterwards, we were like, we didn't plan on this, but we need to meet like right now. So we sat down after the event and we had ideas for the next year. We were pumped. We were excited. And one of the things was we really wanted to extend our team. So we were all Olathe teachers, but we didn't want it to be an Olathe event because we go to Olathe PD all the time. Like we wanted it to be a diverse, like, let's get lots of different ideas and opinions and hear what other districts are doing. And that was our goal. So we broadened our team over the last couple of years and have gotten we've made a point to have representation from every district in Johnson County. But this year we even added some from like the Turner School District and Kansas City, Missouri. So we're kind of broadening, making sure we're getting kind of the whole KC Metro in there as well. And so it's been really exciting. But yeah, so last April, we're all excited. We got all these ideas for year 2. We're pumped up, and like a month out, it's like COVID hit. And we're like, we had prizes sitting in our classrooms, like we had already gotten stuff mailed to us. And I mean, we were just like, we could not let it go. Like, I was just like, this can't happen. Like, we can't just not do it. Like, we've put so much effort in this. We're so pumped up. And honestly, my other worry was we'd only done it 1 year. So if we let this go, it may totally, evaporate. Like, it may just be done because we don't have enough momentum to say, hey, let's take a pause and we'll pick up next year. So again, I just pitched to the team, like, how about we try virtual? And, despite some of us had some pretty serious roles in like trying to help our district. And we did have a couple people that said, I've got a really big role in my district. I can't, we don't know what's going on. I've got to help. And that was totally okay. We understood that. And so with what we had left on our team, we pulled it together. We used Flipgrid and Zoom and really tried to create that collaborative community, that EdCamp. It's a little harder on Zoom. I think it'll be easier now because people are used to Zoom. But at the time, like, Zoom was like new, and, Flipgrid was still something teachers were like, I'm not recording myself. So yeah, it was really exciting. I think it was an awesome timing. We had Randy Watson come and talk to Kansas teachers. And so I think it was comforting for Kansas teachers to hear from their leaders and know that this is a hard time, and just have encouragement from him, and really encouragement from everybody. Like, we're all in this together. We're all exploring this for the first time together. So it was just really exciting. And we decided, about a month or 2 ago, we're like, okay, we just need to accept fate. Like, we are going to be virtual again, which is crazy. Out of 3 years of EdCamp, 2 of them will be virtual. But we feel pretty confident after doing it last year. Now it's like, it's a piece of cake. Like, we can put this thing together, and we've got some changes we're planning on doing as well. But, it's also helped us think in the future about creating a blended environment for EdCamp. So being KC Metro and having lots of great ideas, because we have so many people here, we don't want travel to be an issue. And so there were some people that said, I would have never been able to attend your event normally because of travel or distance and time and money and all that. So we've talked about how could we create like a blended environment where some people could Zoom in to our live environment, like when we are back in person. How could we get people to where they could still participate and be involved, not just listening in, but actually participate? And so we've brainstormed a lot of ideas with that, and even asked some of those people that said, hey, I would like to be a part of this in the future from a distance. Is that possible? And got some ideas from them. So we're kind of excited to, see where this takes us. It's been super fun, and navigating, I'm like, we got to have prizes. We still have to have prizes. Like, that's so fun. And mailing stuff is so fun to people. So luckily, a lot of companies have been willing to mail directly. So they've said, we won't mail to you, just like when you know the winner, give us the address and we'll send it on. So we're excited for year 3 of virtual EdCamp.
Kind of about embracing change. I mean, I think that COVID has done that. It just makes us, in some ways, think outside the box and think differently and challenge how we have done things.
Right.
So,
yeah, and I to be honest, I was very surprised when you guys announced that you were doing virtual just after, like you said, a month after everything got shut down. And it was very well planned out and put together. And but I honestly think that I don't know that EdCamp Kansas would have gotten off the ground if it wasn't for what you guys put together. Because there were several people on that planning committee that participated in your virtual ed camp and saw exactly what you can do, and gave us a little bit more confidence on, yeah, I think, we can put something together too. When it's never been done before. It was just amazing what you guys did. And in the time that you did it, everybody at that time was working, getting stuff done quicker than they've ever gotten it done before. But what you guys pulled off in less than a month was amazing. And I give kudos to you and your team for putting all that together, because it was a really good event. And like you said, if you would have taken that year off, you may not get that participation numbers back. So do you have a date for this year set yet?
We do. And now it's we've got to look at calendar. It is April 17th, somewhere in there, like the third week of April.
Okay. We'll on the episode page, we'll have the show notes section. We'll make sure to post that.
Yeah, it is April 17th. And I think we've said that. I think we decided that we're going to do kind of the 17th and 18th. Again, we've liked that flexibility. Some people didn't like that it was on Friday because some people were teaching. So there was kind of that, some people, their districts were like, don't teach. And so that's why we started Friday. But then we realized some people kind of felt like they were missing out. And so we decided to keep on Saturday and Sunday for this year.
And again, if those of you that are listening, if you've never been to an ed camp, try to make a plan to hop onto this. It's just, like I always said, it's the best PD I ever attend ever. I try to get to within a decent driving distance that I can around here. I don't always present. Sometimes I just sit in, and that, when I came to yours the year before, that wasn't, I wasn't planning on presenting, but I ended up presenting because there was a spot that needed to be filled. I was happy to do that. But my whole plan going in, I never do plan to present, and I just want to listen to what other people are sharing and have those conversations, because those are the way the ed camps are organized. Those connections and those conversations are very powerful. Absolutely. And so that's what I appreciate about the ed camp model. So I'm definitely going to put that on my calendar for April, because those are always a lot of fun.
Yeah, fun and free.
Yes,
free
and prizes. And come on,
and you can win stuff. You gotta participate to win. So
that's right.
That's awesome. Sounds like your team was integral in that. I mean, it does come to teamwork and adjusting. And as we look at remote learning, virtual learning, how do you teach STEM, robotics, and PBL in that type of environment?
Right. So our situation is most of our kids are in person. And then I also have to support the remote learners as a specials teacher. So I've kind of had to navigate both, like the, COVID restrictions of we're not sharing materials, we're keeping our physical distance in person, but then we also have to keep in mind our kids at home. So we've tried to keep our lessons kind of the same in supporting both, so that our home learners aren't missing out on things. And recently, I really felt like our kids at home are missing out on robotics. We spent second quarter really digging into robotics, and I just was like, man, the heart in me was like, I'm so sad that these kids are missing out. Like, this is, to me, it's the funnest part of our year in STEM. And so I started looking into our robotics that we purchased. Our Bird Brain Technologies is the company that makes them. And I kind of started looking into some of their stuff online, and they had stuff about remote robotics. And I was like, okay, how can I do this? And this is my first year using Bird Brain. So I was a little apprehensive of like my ability to like make this happen. But anyways, I had great tutorials on how to connect your students to this. So my son and I actually spent a weekend and we built the robot. So he wanted to build a creeper. So we built this creeper robot and he can move his head around. And so the way it works is using Nets blocks, which I had never used. You can create a server and a client. And so I create the server with kind of the back-end coding to make it function with the robot that I created. And then the client that I give to the students, I can set up kind of some pre-made code for them. And then I also, it looks like Scratch coding. They're really similar blocks. And so I also threw in some blocks like, hey, you might want to troubleshoot with these blocks or change some things with these blocks. But they have access to all the blocks. And so then when I was teaching via Zoom with my remote learners, I sent one kid at a time the link as a client, and they were able to access the robot, and I had the robot on its own Zoom window. And so we asked the robot questions. And so they got to ask like, do you like tacos? And then the student was actually in charge of controlling yes and no with the robot's head. So that was super cool. I mean, like they were freaking out about it. It was so awesome. And so it gave them that connection.
What age of kids?
Fourth graders.
Okay.
So yeah. And I mean, I'm still want them to be able to build, but like for them to be able to control the robot and see that their code had an output was super exciting for them. And it gave them purpose. Like we had been doing some code, but I think robotics gives so much more excitement with seeing that output, that physical output. When you see the little character move across the screen, it can be fun. And you can do creative things, but there's just something about robotics. So I was glad that I was able to connect that kind of magical robotics there. And then I've seen some teachers that I may attempt in second quarter where the kids actually design the plans. So they say, I want a toilet paper roll and a box, and I want this here. And they have to say what robotics pieces are going to be used. And the teacher builds it, and then they control it in the same way that I just did. But I don't know if we'll get to that, but there are ideas out there on how to get kids, being able to do that with supplies that are at school and getting them to connect. But then, the other thing is just in person, we didn't want to lose that collaboration piece. So a lot of our projects have become like independent. And so we just really tried to focus on the sharing and sharing that process and reflecting and building those skills, because STEM is new in this district. So it's still very fresh for them. But we started bringing in some collaboration by having like partner projects. So one person builds the robots and the other person does the coding of the robot. And then it's just a USB cord that connects it together. So that's been one way we've still allowed them to kind of have that collaboration where they have to communicate with each other and be working together. And we've done some catapults where one person is building the collection piece and the other person's building the catapult. So again, having to collaborate from a distance and creating projects that can interact from a distance has been kind of tricky, but it's been fun. I mean, being able to be creative and come up with those ideas and knowing how important those connections are. So
I love the idea of the robot in its own Zoom window.
yeah.
that would be awesome.
Yeah, they think it's
so so talking about coding, because coding in the classroom has just recently taken off, just maybe 5 years, less than that for sure. What advice would you have for somebody who is wanting to get started? Are there what resources would you recommend that they start with? And also, what would you say, or what's your response to people who might be a little hesitant on starting because they think that coding for elementary kids, or getting them started anyway, is just too hard for elementary kids?
Yeah, I think the scariest thing for a lot of teachers is coding is not something they grew up with. And so when we don't understand something as teachers, we're scared. We don't want to do something that we don't understand and give it to kids, because how are we going to help them? I think there's also a fear of kids knowing more than we do. And so that's scary too. And so I understand that. But there are so many kids that grasp computer science more than anything else. They latch onto it. They love it. Kids that hate school, want nothing to do with reading and writing, love computer science. It gives them a creativity outlet. It gives them an outlet to use science and math in a way that they've never experienced it before. And so I would encourage teachers to just let go of those fears, because it's absolutely 100% worth it. I know there's a lot of teachers who are like, well, my kids can't like do much. They're just playing games. And I know a lot of the like foundational stuff can kind of feel like games. But so my husband's a software engineer, and he has shown me a few guys. There's this kid, Revel. He's 10 years old. He has a Twitter account. My husband watches his videos to learn from him. He codes in React. And it's amazing. Like, this 10-year-old is giving presentations to adults out there on coding. And then another kid that I've shown my students is Ruben Paul. Ruben Paul, he calls himself like the ninja hacker or something like that. But he is also, I think he's 11 or 12. And he figured out how to hack into through Wi-Fi, and he can hack into Bluetooth devices. And his purpose was showing that these toys that companies have made for kids are not safe, like the bears that you can connect with, like your dad if they're on a trip or whatever. He was talking about how like people outside of the home can hack into that and send messages to these children. And he was just trying to show this is a cybersecurity issue. He's 11, and he's, again, giving presentations and teaching adults on cybersecurity using computer science and coding. And I show kids that because I don't want them to be limited. And I think adults limit them more than anything. And so I use those kids as examples. But computer science, I think, is more than just coding. Like, it's critical thinking, it's problem solving, it's sequencing. Those are all things that we want kids to learn. Like, we're teaching them every day, and we're always trying to figure out, how do we help them become critical thinkers? Teach them to code, because there is so much critical thinking and problem solving that go into that. It's unreal. And I will say, it being in a new role in a new district this year, I'm working with kids that haven't had any coding experience. Maybe dabbled in code.org for 30 minutes or something, but that's it. And they have latched onto it. Like, girls, boys, everybody. When I tell them we are doing coding or robotics, they lose their minds. I mean, it takes me 5 minutes to like, okay, let's get started, because they're so excited. I mean, it's something that kids love. So when you're getting started, code.org and Scratch are my suggestions, especially for teachers that don't have a lot of experience. They're free, so you don't have to like get funding for them. But they also provide a lot of like scaffolding and support for teachers, which is helpful if you're new to it. The only thing that I think some kids get a bad taste in their mouth for computer science and coding is because their teachers say, here's code.org, and they plop them in front of a computer and say, go. And the danger in that is they don't really understand what they're doing, and they get bored easily because it just feels like puzzles. And now they're, okay, well, I'm done. That's it. So I've been doing a lot of unplugged lessons with my kids, even my remote kids. Like, I'm on Zoom and I'm having them like standing up. We did dance party coding, and I code them to do dance moves. And it's an unplugged lesson on code.org's website. But you teach them a few dance moves connected to colors, and then you like push the button and they have to do that dance move. And they loved it. They're standing in front of their Zoom windows dancing, and it helped them, though, when they got to the digital activity, they understood what an event was. You know, when I press this button, the dancer is going to do this. So they started understanding computer science concepts, not just, oh, coding's fun, doing all these puzzles. So I think that's really important. Is there's tons of unplugged lessons out there. Doing those also helps you as a teacher learn the concepts. So then you understand the vocabulary that you should be using and that the kids should be learning, versus just sitting in front of a computer for an hour.
Yeah, these unplugged are not quite as scary either.
Yes.
Yeah, and you nailed it on the head where you just can't put a kid in front of code.org for 30 minutes as an enrichment or a station and then they get it. It has to be explained to them what's happening, and they need to see that whole the sequence and all of that. That's part of, like you said, when I do this, this happens, or if I do this, this doesn't happen, sort of thing, so they can understand how all those components work.
And the number one thing that my husband said, he gets so frustrated with like new programmers that come in, is they don't know how to debug, which we make a big deal out of that when I'm teaching coding. Is if your code doesn't work, you don't just give up, or you don't just click to the next puzzle, because some kids have figured out that they can just skip the puzzle. Is you have to debug. And how do you debug? You go step by step and you figure out which part of the code, like you said, when it doesn't work, which part of the code is what's not working. And that gets into the critical thinking and the problem solving, teaching them how to problem solve when something doesn't work. And the most adorable thing one day is, we had been talking about debugging, and this girl was like, oh, it's not working. I guess I'll have to go debug my code. And it was just like her saying it out loud, like brought me so much joy. I was like, this is so awesome. And my husband's like, thank you, Ariel, because I have programmers that are adults that don't know how to debug. So if you're teaching it when they're second graders, they're going to be awesome if they go into the computer science field.
And there are so many jobs right now, and they're just continue to grow, that will require some sort of knowledge in coding or programming. But like you said, just having that successful, or that confidence in your problem solving and your critical thinking skills that go along with it will just help students in everything else.
Absolutely.
In any other subject area, if they know how to properly problem solve, they can they'll be able to do a lot. So
yeah. And if you're looking for it, like, I know some schools, some principals don't get it. Your admin don't get it. You mentioned code.org and the open jobs. If you go to code.org and click on Kansas or whatever state you're in, they have stats for how many open jobs are available right now, and also the amount of graduates. So you can kind of see and use that data as like, hey, we need to be teaching this because look at how many jobs are open in our state.
And I think the other thing that stood out to me, and it's part of our ISTE certification for educators, is the standard, and you mentioned this, of teachers learning with students. And that one stuck out to me. When I did my training, I didn't think about it. I took it as I already knew what I was teaching, and then I was learning with them. But really, the standard is you know nothing, and you are learning with students. And that is hard for some of us as educators, but such a great learning experience in and of itself.
Right.
So, well, this next question is one that we ask each person that we have on the podcast. And it's interesting to see each person's perspective on things that, we will take away from teaching during COVID, something that you've learned that you will carry forward and continue as we move forward.
Yeah. So I think, we call these kids that we have right now digital natives. And I think we think they know more than they do. And just because they can navigate an iPad and flip through apps and get to what they want, I don't think they truly understand the power of the devices that are in their hand. And, I mentioned earlier that devices can be used as a babysitting tool. And I unfortunately see that happening in remote learning and even in person. They have a device in their hands all day. And I think if we could really harness the power of those devices, kids would be more engaged. I see a lot of kids quick to jump over to cool math games, or quick to jump over YouTube and, well, I couldn't figure this out, so I'm just going to go watch a YouTube video because I got my headphones and my teachers can't see my screen anyways. So I think moving forward, I think the focus on digital citizenship has got to step up. Like, I think this has given us a window into how do we better prepare kids to use this as a positive tool, not a tool for hurt, not a tool for trolling people, But how do we use this for them to change the world? And every device, Chromebook, iPad, whatever, they have amazing tools to make that happen. But I think we really need, I think this has helped us see how much our kids really need to be taught how to use these devices. They can't just be handed and click on this link, because that link leads them to like 10 other things and things on the sidebar, and they're distracted and lost and getting into things that they didn't know existed in the world. So I think going forward, it should be a charge for all of us to do better with digital citizenship. I feel like we've put it on the back burner and we've kind of ignored it, or we do a cute little common sense media lesson once and call it good, checklist done. And I think we all need to do a better job with that. And I know working with kids, I've been more motivated to do even more with digital citizenship and just helping them see this as a creation tool, not just a sit and get tool.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. Yeah, digital natives have grown up with an iPad or a phone, and those are designed to be easily used, and they don't, like you said, they don't understand. But it's not just the device, like you said, it's getting the correct information and using the online tools in their favor and using it for good is what's important. Like our youngest is a 7th grader, and she will come and she will ask me whatever she's working on. She'll ask me a question about it, and I said, "Have you looked that up yet?"
Yeah.
Because you have a device. And my sarcastic response is, "Man, I wish I had a device where I could look that up." Yeah, and it's almost to the point where she's like, "I've looked this up and I can't find it." You know, but I think you talk about digital citizenship, and part of that is teaching kids how to do good internet searches for information.
Right.
You know, Google and YouTube are the two most used websites on the internet. Use one to find information, and YouTube, you look at, tutorials and how to get help. And like, I needed to fix something on my truck. I watched a couple YouTube videos and had it done. And getting kids to understand, hey, YouTube has a lot more information on it than just watching Minecraft videos or whatever else you're watching on there. So I totally agree with everything you're saying, and it's been like that for a long time. But yeah, getting back to and focusing on digital citizenship is, like you said, is very, very important.
Yeah, and I just hope that like when COVID's over, teachers aren't like, "All right, back to paper and pencil." Because that's my fear, is they've had some bad experiences with technology, and it's because it's all on us. We did not prepare the students, but we're quick to blame the students, and well, they didn't use the technology correctly. And so I have this fear that like teachers, these bad experiences they've had, instead of correcting and thinking about what we can do better as teachers, it's going to be, oh, thank goodness we can get the paper and pencil back out. We can go back to turning in papers and grading on paper. And I want the teachers also to see the power of these digital tools. Like you said, use it to your advantage. You can grade faster. You can provide comments faster. You can get a better idea of what they actually know by having them record their thought process instead of just a paper worksheet with some answers on it.
Yeah, in some ways we need to debug, the problems that we face and then find the solutions, use those experiences to start conversations about digital citizenship. Sometimes it could be easy to work those into conversations that we're having of just good practice. But, we just need to use those situations instead of, like you said, the easy thing would be to go back to paper pencil. But let's challenge ourselves to use the situations that we experience, and then how can we teach from that? How can we grow from that? What can we use to change it for the better?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, Ariel, thank you for joining us this morning. I always like talking to you, and you always, have some really good insights on things. So, just a reminder for our listeners, any of the resources that we mentioned on this episode, you can find on the show notes section of the episode page. It's on our website, and the website's untitledpc.net. And so all the resources, the code.org, and everything else that we mentioned on here, we'll get those links put on there, and you can follow those along. You can also follow Ariel on Twitter. She is at Miss Jankord, MRSJANKORD on Twitter. And then remember, put on your calendar right now, April 17th and 18th at Camp Joco, Johnson County. I really like going to Olathe West High School. That's a really nice building, but
I know. It is very cool. We enjoy that space as well. Someday we'll get back there.
We'll get back there someday. That's right. So Ariel, thank you. Thanks for joining us. And thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.